Good afternoon, friends. It's my pleasure to have a conversation with Mr. Colin Shah. I'm sitting in his SEEP's office, and despite his busy schedule, he has given me a time, and I'm really grateful. So, let me formally welcome you to this edition of Trade Talks, Mr. Colin Shah. How are you feeling today?
Great. Thanks for coming to SEEP's today.
Wonderful. It has been my first time, but I'm really impressed, and thank you very much for the hospitality as well. Now, to begin our conversation, you wear two hats. On one hand, you are the managing director of Kamaksh sector, and you are also the chairman of GJEPC. So, what we'll do is we'll spend our first few minutes in talking about your journey, because I think it will be inspiring for all of us, including our audience members. So, what I believe about Kamaksh sector, I have a little bit of research that I have done. You are the first generation entrepreneur. You started your journey, your career at the age of 17 as a diamond assorter. And by the age of 26, you became the managing director, you floated this company. So it has been a phenomenal journey. So before I ask you a detailed question, I would like to begin our conversation on a little bit of a philosophical note. So, what is life? Life is a journey. Life is a journey that begins with birth, ends with death. Birth and the death are the only constant. All other things in between are uncertain. These are not under control. But we have choices. And what we choose determines our personality and our growth. So, I would now like to ask you, how did your stint in the jewelry industry start? Was it out of serendipity, or you had a liking, or you had planned the journey? Please begin. Over to you.
Thanks. So, I'm a doctor's son, and in a medical family in the 80s and 70s, generally if your father's a doctor, you want to become a doctor, and so did I. I wanted to become a doctor. My brother is a gynecologist, infertility specialist. My sister is a radiologist. Dad was, of course, a gynaec and a surgeon. And, 11th, 12th, I did science, did my HSC from Jai Hind. And actually, I got a 99 PCB in 87. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it today, is that's the year when the Mandal Commission was placed. And the government changed the reservation from 30 to 50%. And for medicine especially, and we were the affected ones, we had to give this common medical entrance exam, which was a pan-India, entrance test. So Bombay students would get admission anywhere, and students from anywhere in the country would basically, go into the medical school wherever their marks took them. So I got admission in Pune, and one of my best friends got in on the first list. I got in on the second list. And those were the times when there was a lot of ragging, which was very prevalent in the colleges at that time. So when my, one of my good friends got on the first list and went through very, I would say, aggressive ragging in those times, had a nervous breakdown, was admitted into hospital. Looking at that, I lost my desire to get into medicine. So I changed over to commerce, and then I went to Sydenham and did my BCom from there. And while I was, when I changed over, and in my first year of commerce, is when I tried my hand at various things, electrical trading. One of my uncles was a chartered accountant, so went for audits. One was a cotton yarn merchant, so went there. Didn't really, I would say, fall in love with any of those industries. And then did this diamond grading course, at IGI. So one of the council institutes, which used to be there in Gurukul Chambers in Mumbai Devi in those times. And I learned diamond grading over there. The Naveen Jashnani of Samaj Jewelry had recommended the course to me, and fell in love with diamonds, the industry. Met a lot of good friends in that course, who turned up becoming customers of mine. And as I learned the ropes of the business, I learned polished assortment, rough manufacturing, jewelry manufacturing, and business slowly grew into a nice B2B business, which I used to do at those times, basically manufacturing jewelry in Mumbai and selling to retailers pan-India, the focus being mainly South. And at the age of 25, then that's when I started Kama, because thought that if I wanted to scale my business up, I'll need a factory, and was very keen to get into exports, travel the world. So that's how I started Kama. And then, God's been kind. It's been a good journey, like you mentioned it earlier, so far.
So that has been a spectacular journey, but Dil Mange More, we would like to know a little more. Because nowadays there is a trend. Earlier people used to hide their mistakes, but now there is a new trend where fail frequently and fail faster, and you learn from your mistake. So I'd like to know from you that I'm sure that you must have made lots of mistakes and you have learned from them and then bounce back even stronger. So I would leave it to you to choose one failure that which impacted your business, but then you learned something from it and then bounced back.
So, a good question, and I would say that just like any entrepreneur or business person, I've made my share of mistakes from my journey of from 18 to 52. That's my age today. So what I've learned, and I've made, say, over my series of mistakes, what I've learned is that it's best to focus on your core competency. So in diamond jewelry, our core competency is it is B2B jewelry manufacturing. And whenever we've dabbled in something else, so I would say, one of my mistakes was I got into diamond manufacturing. Started a small factory in Gujarat, 40 people, did that for 2-3 years. But then I wasn't able to run a profitable business or manage that factory well. So that was a mistake. Getting into retail, I guess that was a mistake. Getting into, I would say a very rampant expansion overseas, where I had offices in Tokyo, Germany, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Shenzhen, jewelry factory in Panyu. So when we did, those were, I would say, mistakes for us, because we lost focus. So over the years, whenever we focused on one thing and did that well, it's done well for us, instead of spreading ourselves too thin all over the place.
Fantastic. So if I have to summarize, you spread yourself too thin, and then you lost money, or you lost the direction also somewhere. And then you realized your mistake and you focused on given processes and which would impact positively on your profit, right? So now, taking our conversations forward, I have read recently an incident from a book, very interesting. I'll share it with you and our audience. Jeff Bezos, as everybody knows, Jeff Bezos. People tend to ask a question: what are the trends? What things are going to change in the future? So Jeff Bezos says, this is a very common question. I would appreciate a question. What is going to remain constant? So as far as my business is concerned, Bezos said, the things which are going to remain constant are people wanting to have a wide choice. They want it at a cheaper price, and they want it fast. So these are the 3 areas which I focus. And so my question to you, in your business, what are the things from Kama perspective are going to remain constant? Because what happens is some of the needs and desires of human beings are not only universal, but they are eternal. They don't really change much. And on the other hand, there are the fears and phobias which also don't change much. So what is your take on?
So I think the things which will remain constant for our business for, I would say, maybe decades or centuries to come. One is design. I guess design has always been extremely important, continues to be important, and I guess will become maybe more important in times to come as the consumer gets more discerning. Is making I would say cutting edge design. That would be a constant. Another constant, and which continues to raise the bar, I would say, year on year or decade on decade, as you may see it, is quality. So, customers, I would say globally, India, anywhere in the world, quality is becoming more and more important as the consumer today is understanding more about the finer nuances of jewelry. So, I think quality is another constant. And thirdly, lastly, but not the least today, is service. Though it sounds simple, but the service requirement which a customer expects today, whether it's a retailer or a consumer, is impeccable. It's more and more digital. It's speedier. So I guess between design, quality, service, those would be the constants for our business in the long term and short term.
Okay. So I'll just elaborate on the service element. So when you are talking about service, I also gather that relationships are very important. So not just selling a product, because you have to be constantly in touch with your customers. And since you are into B2B space, you keep on coming into the contact with the same person. So service element is very important. Point well taken. Now, taking our conversation forward, this is the last question I am going to ask you about your views as a MD of Kama. So, what has happened is during the COVID was very hard. COVID-19 was very hard on all of us, and we lost many people close to us, near and dear ones. But fortunately, things are now improved. We have bounced back, and nobody thought that the category like gem and jewelry will not only bounce back but will grow even further. So there are various opinions expressed, but I would like to know your opinion. What do you ascribe, what factor do you ascribe to this spectacular bounce back?
I would say there's only one factor, and it's prosperity. The world's a richer place today than what it was 2 years back. Especially, and what's really happened globally is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. But for gems and jewelry, it's the rich who are the consumer. And like you see in most luxury industries, which was the big worry. Also, if and you're a webinar expert, so if you remember in the first lockdown, there were tons of webinars happening, from every part of the world. And what everyone said is that luxury will be the last one to recover, and it's going to be a long way ahead, and maybe 2 years and blah, blah, blah. But it came back very sharply. And the reason is that there's liquidity all over the world. The central banks have pumped, more money than they ever did in the last 2 decades in every respective economy. Stock markets are at all-time high. Commodity prices went through the roof. And I guess our industry caught the huge benefit of that because, people, of course, the trigger effect was that people were at home, they didn't have much to do, they were shopping online, all that, yes. But in the end, people had money. So when they had money, they went and bought things which they normally weren't buying so much of. I think that's the one and maybe only reason.
Very good input. I will share my input because I was going through a webinar which was conducted by Doug Stephens. You might remember Doug Stephens because Plum Club had organized a session 2 years back, I think in 2018. And what he was interviewing a scientist, social anthropologist, and who said that what happens is any crisis polarizes people. And what he said was the human behavior, whether you like it or not, we as human beings are always obsessed with mortality, fear. In whatever we do, we are very happy to be alive, but you may die anytime. So whenever there is a crisis such as a pandemic or a war, this factor comes to the fore. And depending on the genetic makeup of a person, people are altruistic, at the same time materialistic, at the same level, depending on one's genetic makeup. So if you are a very rich person, you will contribute to charity, but you will also splurge because you don't know how long you are going to be alive. So, as you rightly said, that when people were at home, they had to gift something precious, which holds a value. So while gem and jewelry, it is a debatable point whether it is a investment product or not, but it surely is a store of value, which can be passed on from generation to generation. So that is one of the reasons I thought I will share it, since we are having a conversation. I don't intend, I am not an expert, but I am just sharing it. And as I told you a little while ago, that Bernard Arnault, who is the owner of the LVMH group, the largest luxury conglomerate in the world, he was the second richest man in the world, okay, and Jeff Bezos was number one. So during this pandemic, he has become the number one. So that's about people splurging and materialism and all those things. As far as altruism is concerned, we'll come slightly later. Now let's begin with the topic which impacts the industry as a whole. Now you are wearing the hat of GJEPC chairman. So since all of us are very familiar with the 4 C's of diamond, I would like to structure our conversation on the 4 C framework, but I would like to spell it out. So the first C would be core values. What do you stand for? Then secondly, the capital allocation. When I say capital, it is human as well as financial capital. Then third part is the communication and collaboration aspect, and the fourth is the compassion. So these are the 4. Let's go one by one. So as far as the industry is concerned, we would also first let's talk about the budget. You know, the budget which was recently announced. There are mixed views. Whereas people, the industries or the rich people have held it as a growth-oriented budget. The common man says it's okay budget, like, you know, they are neutral part. But as far as the gem and jewelry sector is concerned, I think GJEPC has praised the budget on many fronts. But as far as the people who are in the periphery of the industry, they perceive the budget to be helping only one segment. Duties on, let's say, pearl or diamonds have been has been reduced. So one pointed question which I will ask you, when India is exporting diamonds, how does the import duty on diamonds help grow business? That is one aspect, and your overall take on budget is most welcome. We would like to.
So, you know, as council, our endeavor is always to grow exports. I mean, that's the main goal. So whatever policy initiatives we're asking the government, you know, during the course of the year, leading to the build up to the budget and then the budget, is to enable our members to export more. So, you know, because there's pressure to grow the industry every year from the government only. And of course, you know, even our industry, considering it's the second largest merchant exporter today, is where do we go from here? So the potential is to grow this industry from the $35–40 billion we are at to $100 billion in the next, you know, I guess years to come. But obviously there's going to be milestones where first we need to reach 50, 60, 70, and then maybe ultimately $100 billion. So for this, the industry needs a variety of things. So like you asked on diamonds, we're already cutting and polishing 14 out of 15 diamonds in the world. So where do we go from here? So the growth can come from, you know, increase in price of diamonds, you know, and last year, fortunately, they grew between 15 and 25%. So as that growth came, you know, the growth in the industry, even though carats remained more or less same or a little low, but there was a growth because the value of diamonds went up. Secondly, in diamonds, and like since we're all part of this industry, there is a huge component of recycling. Customers all over the world come, exchange their jewelry, they're trading in to buy something more expensive, or they just have a monetary issue and want to sell back the diamond jewelry that they have. Now, where do these old diamonds go? You know, some of them are hundreds of years old, some of them are relatively new, but in the end, the retailer does not have the wherewithal to get these diamonds back into the system, cut and polish them again, grade them in the correct color, clarity, size, and then manufacture jewelry and sell again. This has to be done in a low cost destination like India, which has the expertise of cutting and polishing these diamonds. Right now, we are losing that business to Dubai, Hong Kong, Antwerp. With reduction in duty, we can also be the largest hub for recycling these diamonds. Now, just to put a value to it, this is probably $1 to $2 billion annually of diamonds which come back into the system, which need to be cut, polished, sorted again, and mixed with the current manufacturing lot, and then manufacture of jewelry and export again. So with duties being at 7.5%, that's a business we're losing on. If the duty, I'm not saying at 5%, all that business will move here, but maybe a certain percentage will move here. As the duties still get lower, then there will be a point when that entire business moves to India. So, that's one definite ask from the government. And the same thing is even on gemstones. So you have diamonds and gemstones of it. On gold, we've been asking for duty reduction, but it didn't unfortunately happen in this budget, for the simple reason that again, it makes our exports more competitive. Today, our top 25 competing nations don't have the tariffs we have. India today on gold, between duty and GST, has one of the highest tariffs in the world, which does make our exports not so competitive. So with a lower duty, for sure, we'll make our exports more competitive. But having said that, we are expecting the India-UAE FTA to be signed soon, and there should be some good news for our exporting community in the UAE FTA, which is signed. Besides that, in the budget for us, what is incredible, and those are the two things which will really propel our industry ahead, is one is the e-commerce policy, which will come in by June. Now, this will enable every jeweler, manufacturer or retailer across the country to export through e-commerce to any consumer anywhere in the world, 200 countries, in a low cost and speedy way. So this e-commerce policy, we are really hoping at GJEPC will help propel the entire industry forward. Not only council members, but today any retailer sitting in any town, remote town in India, will be able to partake in this, because you will be able to send your post through Indian Post. Okay. And below a certain value, there won't be all the customs and regulations that we have to go through. So that e-commerce policy will come in. And secondly, but not the least, is the SEZ policy. So SEZs are 35% of our exports today. The big I guess growth can come in our SEZs if foreign manufacturers and retailers come and invest in India in setting up factories, but they only will be able to do so if the rules are a little more amiable to more FDI, like it is in China and Thailand. So the new SEZ policy will enable them to do that, which will be out by September end. So those two announcements with the tariff decreases were probably, I guess, the best things for our industry in this budget.
And one thing also I think needs a little bit of elaboration. There has been a provision for the MSMEs, and some people say, experts say that it gives a leeway to MSMEs to compete with others, and not really a level playing field, but it has done something to the MSME players. So would you like to
be honest, see today MSMEs, what the government has luckily done for all of us is that all exporters are MSMEs by default, unless you have a domestic sale which is more than 250 crores. So I guess that puts everyone at an advantage. And the advantage is, I would say, very good, because unlike telecom or you take any other sector, our industry is very fragmented. We have 7,000 members as council, and they are all across the country. So most of our industry is an MSME. There are very few, I would say, large players who are, say, outside the ambit of the new MSME definition which the government has put. So it puts the entire industry at an advantage. So I don't know what the disadvantage is against, but everyone's got the same advantage which everybody else has. So it's a level playing field in some sense, and it's incredible because it's going to help the whole industry to grow.
Okay, point well taken. Last point on this budget, I think there is a reduction in import of pearls. So pearl, while everybody loves pearls, how is the potential for growth?
See, it's a small sector. Globally, the pearl market is around $300–400 million. So it's not like a large value add. But these are all the small parts which are going to help our entire basket, right? Like there's lab grown, there's gemstones, there's pearls, there's, I guess, silver jewelry, platinum jewelry. So when you take all the small parts together, we'll reach our, say, $50 billion, which we want to reach in the next 2 years. So I guess all the small parts matter. So there is potential equal to the market size of that sector globally.
Point taken. So, as we said, the 4 C's. So, let's take the first 2 C's together, like core values and the what do you call capital allocation. As you rightly said, you learned a lesson in your journey as a industrialist in the diamond business. The focus is very important. You can't do everything. So, when it comes to the council, there are so many things to be done. So, how do you really identify the core areas to focus on? And how do you allocate your resources? This is very important. So, can you just summarize, the areas, broad areas?
See, like I told you earlier, the council's main goal is exports. Okay, so why exports? Because of foreign exchange and employment, right? I mean, if you have to answer the why, right? I mean, for the country, that's what we do. We generate foreign exchange which the country needs, and we are generating employment. Now, coming to the GJEPC part, what does that translate into? It basically translates only into what our members want. So, council is focused only on one thing, it is member. Okay, and whatever a member needs in his life cycle in the gems and jewelry business, that's what we provide. For example, if a member has challenges on policy, so we are their voice with the government. If the member has challenges on banking, we are their voice with the banking sector. If the member needs to do B2B business in India or globally, we have our exhibitions, which are IIJS, the global edition of IIJS, right? Then if the member needs education or tech development, we again have a variety of platforms. We are doing webinars, seminars, we have a lot of, if you go to our website, there's all kinds of information of everybody and anybody in our industry over there. So if you look at that's what GJEPC, so its focus is very clear, it's member. Whatever a member needs, that's what GJEPC provides between everything that it does. So you have your IIJS, you have labs, you have institutes, you have everything which in the end is coming out of a member's need. So that's what we're trying to do.
Point well taken. Being associated with the gem and jewelry industry for a long time, what I find is that there is a very efficient team. Not just the directors, but even the secretariat and the team. They are very proactive. And whatever initiatives are being taken up by the council. So I think chairman has a limited tenure, but there is a follow through. And just to give you one example of the new property that you have created, IIJS, India Gold and Jewelry Summit, right? So, and what I found that I think we are going to have the 4th or 5th edition soon. And some of the initiatives which were discussed, like India Bullion Exchange, which has also seen the light of the day, and some trading activity has started at the Gift City in Gujarat. That is one. Secondly, as you rightly pointed out, that your focus is on exports. So people are wondering that when export is your focus, why are you dilating your efforts in local issues such as hallmarking? We'd like to have a clarification, because everybody needs to understand, because while you are doing a very good thing, there are many associations who are also doing the same thing. So we would like to have your take.
See, I'll tell you, GJEPC has 7,000 members. Mostly our members are manufacturers. Now in these 7,000, exporters are 2,500. So there is a large, part of our membership which has only a domestic business. Now, I guess while I appreciate what everyone is saying and why, and I guess there's all kinds of questions, we must fundamentally understand one thing, that today to be an exporter, and you take the largest exporter in the world, China, Germany, US, these are all your large exporters. And if you take a company like, you take one of the most famous companies, Apple, okay? Apple would not have a successful export business unless it had a strong domestic business, okay? You take a BMW, Audi, Mercedes. They are BMW, Audi, Mercedes because first they had the Autobahn in Germany, which made them powerful automobile companies in Germany. And because the German consumer is so, I would say, conscious about quality and what they drive, okay, that's why they have the high quality which makes them the finest cars in the world today, okay. So in India also, you can't export in isolation unless you have a strong domestic market, where there is a manufacturer who is servicing the domestic industry in a strong way, produces design, quality, service, scale, everything in a cost efficient way, and then becomes an exporter. Okay, that's how it works globally. It is nothing which I'm saying something unique or of that. So coming to the point, that's why GJEPC has to play a role in the domestic industry, because that's how we are incubating exporters. That okay, you're doing IIJS, you're building a strong domestic business. Once they get awareness on design, quality, service, then the council does shows abroad too, right? They get some export customers and slowly become large exporters too. Okay, so that's how the whole thing, I guess, works. Fortunately or unfortunately for, I would say, many other bodies who are trying to say that, council should only do this and council should only do that. But council has to do what, like I importantly said earlier, we service only one person, which is our member. So if our member tells us to do something, we do that. Coming to hallmarking actually, interestingly, though it's maybe perceived as something which is only for India, we at council see that we today, if we have a robust hallmarking system in India, can actually export our hallmark jewelry over the world. Our hallmark jewelry can become the gold standard globally, because of the wonderful system which BIS has built in India. Whether it's the fire test assay system, you have your HUID number on an online portal. Imagine a consumer anywhere in the world can punch in his HUID and get the certificate of their jewelry. I think it's incredible. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and we today have the opportunity of being like this large exporter anywhere in the world. So I think anything and everything which will help our industry to become a larger exporter is something which GJEPC will do. I hope that's answered your question.
But since we are talking about gold, we started our conversation with gold. Can I have your inputs on the bullion exchange, the spot exchange which has come up? What kind of lobbying or what kind of representation you had to make to the government, and how it will benefit?
No, we had to do a lot. We were quite involved, and I would say even the government was very actively, I would say, engaging with all of us on how we can make this successful. See, what's happened is there used to be the London Bullion Exchange, not used to, there is the London Bullion Exchange, which where say most of the trading of gold happens. But then Brexit happened and the Shanghai Exchange came up. So there is a huge part of the Chinese business which has moved to the Shanghai Exchange. So I think with IFSCA, again, like, what we spoke about hallmarking, today we have the potential, if we execute correctly, to becoming the exchange of gold in the world. We already are the second largest market, so there is that much gold coming to India, in tons. And we have the potential of just having every miner, every, person who means anything in the gold industry in the world, trading through IFSCA. It will give our jewelers also access to gold directly. So the fundamental change which has happened is, and I'm sure you're aware of it, that gold in India only used to come through nominated agencies. You cannot buy gold outside of nominated agencies. Now anyone can buy gold through the GIFT City. So I think it's an incredible reform which will open up our industry. It's going to open up much more avenues, and we'll see ourselves becoming a larger part of the global gold industry.
So if I understand correctly, it will reduce the number of intermediaries. So it will help the buyers of gold in making their life easier, as well as little bit of cheaper as well, because there won't be intermediaries.
Cheaper, easier, and larger, I would say. We are going to become more and more important in the global industry.
So, Mr. Colin Shah, let's take our conversation forward. I think we are having a very, very good and nuanced answers from you. So, coming to the third C, which is the collaboration. The collaboration begins with communication. So, when you communicate to the industry at large, all the stakeholders, it's an opportunity to connect and then collaborate. So what I have found that under your tenure and even before, but under your tenure, it has assumed a lot of significance and importance. that you have collaborated with different industry segments, so which has brought in a positivity and a learning atmosphere. In the sense that, see, when you are talking to only the jewelry people, consumer doesn't look at jewelry in isolation. It's a whole ecosystem. So what I found is you have been collaborating with other industry players, such as you had collaborations with eBay, then you had with Mercedes-Benz, you had with Yes Bank, and also going out of your realm, you have collaborated with World Gold Council in terms of communication. A lot of films have been. You have collaborated with NDC. You have come out with beautiful campaign. You come up with a beautiful video on the India story, how to to position India as a global hub. So how do you do that? So your thoughts on this, and not to forget the redesigned GJEPC logo. It is really making a lot of difference. So your thoughts on the communication. See, we as stakeholders of the jewelry industry, we are very passionate about the product, but we are also creating an experience, and that begins with the communication. So your take, please.
So I'll start in the reverse order. Start from the logo. So we all felt as the board that since it's been years since we had this new identity, there was time to do a refresh and make the council logo much more, I would say, younger, for lack of another word, younger and more relevant to the millennials. So that's why we went through this whole process. We did a lot of stakeholder consultation, and after that we finally launched our logo, and must say very happy and proud to be associated with it. It does make the council feel younger and progressive. So that's on the logo front. Well, coming to the collaboration front, I guess that's what the world has become today. So you take Amazon, you take anybody, right? So we look at GJEPC as that. We are a platform where we are able to get, so Amazon gets buyers and sellers. In our case, it's our members and all the people that our members need to work with. And we are only the facilitator in between. So that's at least what I personally envisage council to be. That we're basically a facilitator for our members. And we, help them collaborate with everybody and anybody who's in this industry and who could help our members to export more. In the end, the goal, like I said, is exports and exports. So whatever helps our member to sell more jewelry and gems, that's what we're doing. So whether it's World Gold Council, Natural Diamond Council, eBay, yes, but it's everybody, and we're open to work with anybody. We're even open to work with any other jewelry trade body, where we work very closely with DMCC. We work very closely with I guess IDMA, WFDB. You take any boards in the world, we work very closely with them. And I would say, even when it came to hallmarking or anything in the domestic industry, which we represent Delhi, we've been more than happy to work and collaborate with every trade body in the country to further the common interests of our members. So that goes without saying.
Fantastic. So now what has happened is, in the last 2 years, I find that the Industry and Commerce Minister is also very enthusiastic, and he is really monitoring the progress, and he is seeing the results. So he is very much charged up. So in the last 6 months, there have been mega announcements of projects such as mega CFCs in Mumbai and Surat, revamping of SEEPs, as well as setting up the jewelry parks. So your take on little bit more information than what has already been published.
We always work closely with the Commerce Ministry. We have the Joint Secretary on our board. We have always 2 representatives from the government side on the council board. So I would say historically, from last 50 years since council has started, we've always worked closely, continue to do so, and I'm sure that even in the coming years after I'm gone, there will be a close relationship with the Commerce Ministry, for the simple reason that I guess the council over the years has proved its track record that when it says something, it's it's ethical and it's the correct thing to do or say for the country first. Okay, I guess our industry is one part. The country is obviously the main objective over here, but council has built that respect in Delhi. It has built credibility, and I guess we are fortunate that with the current minister, he's from Mumbai, so he has this obvious affinity with Mumbaikars, and he also is very passionate about growing exports. So with GJEPC, he's seeing a partner which is very quickly implementing what his direction is from the country's point of view. So his vision, I guess, comes from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is very boldly, given this vision of growing exports to $400 billion. Out of 400, we are 10% at 40. As the country wants to grow to $700 billion and then $1 trillion, I guess gems and jewelry will continue to play a larger role in this overall export basket. And as we do so, it's a symbiotic relationship. So we have to work closely with each other in aligning the country's overall goal with the industry's goal. And for that, whether it's building CFCs, whether it's policy initiatives, it's SEZ, e-commerce, we have to work closely together because we are the industry's voice to them and they are the government's voice to us, and we have to work closely together to make sure the country prospers at the end of the day. So,
okay. Fine. I'm very happy with the kind of answer you have given. But one thing which is very apparent that this government, central government, is also talking about regional cluster development. So I'll just share a small example. See, now geography is not so relevant. So I'll just give you a short story about two Mishras. So there are two Mishras from UP. One of them is Rahul Mishra, the well-known designer who recently was acquired by Reliance. And the second one is Nilesh Mishra. Both of them happen to be from UP. So what they have done as individuals, they are motivating the workforce to reverse migration. So people who are working in, let's say, Mumbai in Dharavi, which has got a very talented pool and they are making the finest stuff as far as fashion is concerned. So what Rahul is doing, that he's saying the kind of money you are making it in Dharavi, come to the village, I'll give you more business. You spend more time, quality time with friends and family. Nilesh Mishra is a radio jockey and he was a very successful one. He migrated to his village. He's created something called Gaon Connection and he's creating an infrastructure and helping the cottage industry and all that jazz. So this reverse migration is a very good story, and as far as the jewelry industry is concerned, I think places like when we are talking specifically about Ahmedabad and about diamonds, the Ahmedabad historically was the center for diamonds as well as Hyderabad. So I think once the cluster development happens and is implemented, it will definitely impact positively the entire India. So what is your take?
No, I mean, I agree. Means there's no disagreement over here.
Okay.
When you say cluster development,
yeah. So now we have only 2 points left. So the last C, which is the compassion. See, being the largest revenue generator for the gem and jewelry industry, if you compare it globally also, so we have a large workforce. And while you have done a lot of things, like Parichay cards, giving insurance to workforce. And as an individual, you are on the board of Make a Wish Foundation, and the council also does a Jewelers for Hope kind of a program every year. So do you have any more such initiatives in future?
We continue to again do many things. So we are associated with Diamonds Do Good. We do the charity dinner. We have Swasthya Kosh and Swasthya Ratna. And besides that, I guess this calamity which came upon all of us, COVID, we did whatever was necessary. But having said that, council has always been very open to all our worker, I would say, challenges across the country. Will continue to be so, and whatever they need. I mean, as an industry also, if you see, it's been always a very gracious industry. So I don't know if you've had the chance to look at it, but we built this charity book also, where all the philanthropic activities of a lot of our companies across the industry are mentioned. So I guess as an industry also we are fortunate that I would say all jewelers across the country are very large-hearted and they go out of their way to take care of their karigars and even office people and everything. So I guess in that standpoint, compared to I guess what maybe was perceived a few decades back to where it is today, it's a huge difference today.
So the last point is about the upcoming IIJS signature. So what's new and what are the innovations that we can witness at the IIJS signature show, which is let's say 8 days from now?
Yeah, 8 days from now. So IIJS signature, I guess, is a well-established show. From our early days in Goa when we were a much smaller show in 2008, 9, and 10. It's evolved into already being the second largest show in India after IIJS premiere. So considering it's close to 1,000 exhibitors, it's more than 14,000 visitors. A large show of this size is happening after IIJS August in Bangalore. So I guess in terms of what it holds for the visitors, it's variety. So you have diamonds, you have gems, you have polki, plain gold jewelry, diamond jewelry, kuttur, entry level, machinery exhibit. So in terms of it has everything and anything which a retailer in India or globally would want for its requirements. So I would urge all visitors once again that for your Akshaya Tritiya needs, the timing is right, the variety is there, a lot of enthusiasm is there because show is happening after this whole third wave. I guess nobody is going to be disappointed. Plus, we have hotel rooms for a lot of our elite buyers. There's every evening is going to be like one mega party, all under COVID regulation. But splendid time is guaranteed for all.
Oh, fantastic. So I enjoyed my conversation with you. I hope you too enjoyed. I'm not very sure. So I'll just sign off. You're a very busy person, but I'll sign off by reciting 4 lines from Robert Frost's very famous poem. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep. So you are the man of action, Mr. Colin Shah. Wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.